morning, everyone. This is Dana from NexGen. This month, we are discussing Homeowner Associations or HOAs. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos. Last week, we reviewed some frequently asked questions as it pertains to an HOA. Today, I would like to address those questions. To make it easier, I will illustrate with our millennials, Richard and Carly. And for those of you who are new to their story, I will include it in the link above and in the description below. If you remember, Richard selected a home in a gated community. He brought Carly to see the home before they were married. Carly appreciated the beautiful homes with their manicured lawns and the amenities of a clubhouse, gym, walking trails, tennis courts, and golf courses. When selecting his home, the real estate agent explained to Richard that the community was part of an HOA. Richard was unfamiliar with homeowners associations, so he and Carly did their research. Richard and Carly found that an HOA is an organization within a residential community that enforces rules, regulations, and standards for properties within that community. And both Richard and Carly grew up in a military family, so they were familiar with military family housing. So purchasing this home gave them automatic HOA membership. Now, the HOA membership was stipulated in the property's deeds, so they would not be able to opt out of being in the HOA. Now, their homeowners association handles maintaining common areas, enforcing community rules, managing finances, and ensuring that the community remains attractive and well maintained. And this can include landscaping, pool maintenance, golf course, of course, maintained, the guard that is at the gate, the guards, that are at the gate, and trash collection. In addition to their mortgage, homeowners insurance, and property taxes, HOA fees, which are known, you may have heard them being called dues or assessments. They are payments that are made by the homeowners to the HOA. So since they had a mortgage, that goes to the mortgage company. Then they have the homeowners insurance that they pay every year and the property taxes that they pay every year. And then the HOA fees, they could either pay on a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis, however they decide they want to do this. Now, the amount is decided by the HOA board, and it's usually based on the community's budgets and needs. So every year, the board will get together and make a budget so they would know how much to assess each homeowner. Now, if a homeowner decides not to pay the assessment, they could face penalties such as late fees, interest charges, and legal action. And in extreme cases, the HOA may place a lien on the property or initiate foreclosure procedures. So no matter what the challenge is, the homeowner that's in an HOA must make their assessments. They must make the payments. Because the home is part of the HOA, Richard's realtor gave him a package that outlined the HOA rules and regulations. Now, these HOA rules are often found in the covenants, conditions, and restrictions, and they govern what homeowners can and cannot do with their property. This can include rules on the exterior paint colors, landscaping, fencing, parking, etc. This gave Richard an opportunity to decide whether he agrees with the community's rules and regulations. If he didn't agree with the rules and regulations, then of course he wouldn't buy a home in that community. Fortunately, after reviewing the governing documents, Richard decided to buy the home. Now, after a few years, Richard and Carly and other homeowners saw a need to change the HOA rules. Now, this process usually requires a vote by the HOA board, and I'll talk about that in a minute, or approval by a certain percentage of homeowners in the community. Now, the specific process will be outlined in the community's governing documents. But let's say that there is a dispute. How do we handle that? Now, disputes with an HOA can be resolved through communications and negotiation. Now, if this fails, then the options would be or could include mediation, arbitration, or legal action, depending on the severity of the dispute and what is addressed in the governing documents. There was a dispute where the HOA entered the homeowner's property. Now, HOAs generally have limited rights to enter a homeowner's property. Typically, they would do it for inspections or maintenance purposes, and they usually do this with prior notice. Now, I've seen this with senior living properties where the HOA manages the exterior of the homeowner's properties. Now, the specific rights of entry are outlined in the governing documents. Now, I briefly I brought up the HOA board. Well, who are they and what do they do? Well, the board is elected among the homeowners, and they handle making decisions about the community's management, including budgeting, enforcing rules, and managing community resources. So to become a member of the HOA board, a person would usually need to be nominated and then elected by the fellow homeowners. Elections are usually held annually, and of course the details are provided in the community's governing documents. So they have the covenants, which what they call the CC&R, and then they have the bylaws. And usually the bylaws are talking about the election of board members and how they handle the election of officers. Now, speaking of governing documents, Richard and Carly read this before making changes to their property, such as adding a deck, changing paint colors, or altering landscaping. They saw that they needed to get HOA approval. So that's going to be outlined as well. And if they didn't do so, it could result in a fine, or they would probably have to undo the change that was made. So it was important for Richard and Carly to review the governing documents to find out what needed to be done before they did it. Although there are a few drawbacks of living in an HOA community, such as restrictions on property use, mandatory fees, potential conflicts with the HOA board, and possible fines for noncompliance of rules. Now, with the drawbacks, there's also benefits. The benefits include a well-maintained common area, access to amenities, consistent property values, and a sense of community. So they were in a gated community. They had use of a pool, so they didn't actually have to buy a house that had a pool. That would be something they'd have to maintain. They had a gym that they could use. They had a golf course. There were so many amenities that benefited Richard, Carly, and their family. Now, as a side note, homeowners have a right to access HOA documents, which includes the covenants that I was talking about, the bylaws, and meeting minutes. Now, you usually see these documents, they're usually available in the HOA management office or online, and you can see if they have a website or a portal. So now that the children are in school, Carly decided that she wanted to run for the HOA board. Now, thanks to her family and friends that went out campaigning, she was elected to the board in this past July. Next week, we are discussing HOAs from a board member's perspective. Thank you for stopping by, and I hope this information was beneficial. I look forward to talking to you soon, and have a great week.